we are going to have Hans do his presentation. But first, I wanted to just remind you guys that there's a survey in the chat, and make sure to sign in if you haven't already. But without further ado, I'll introduce Hans. Hans is Jan's dad, and he is a physicist, and he's been on 2 space shuttle missions, and he's going to give his presentation. And throughout the presentation, make sure to put your questions in the chat, and we'll be sure to ask them afterwards. And he's going to, he said he would stay a little bit after the meeting till about 7:45 to answer questions. So you guys can feel free to stay after as well to ask your questions. But yeah, I'll turn it over to Hans.
Okay, so first the biggest hurdle is to share the screen, right?
Yes.
Share and then get the presentation up. Do you see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
This looks good.
Wonderful. I'm trainable. Now let's get that. Okay. So first of all, good evening to you guys. I'm 2 hours later than you here in Texas. I want to talk about my spaceflight career, shuttle and ISS. Second time I went to the ISS with the space shuttle Atlantis. And I want to spend about a third of the time introducing some engineering job opportunities, or let's say, I want to emphasize who else but the tip of the iceberg, who everybody knows, the astronauts. Who else is important for a successful mission? And these are not very few people. These are in the order of 100,000 people. Here at JSC, Johnson Space Flight Center in Houston, there are between 12,000 now again, and in the high times there were 15,000, but we will get there if we continue with all the space programs which are in the pipeline. And the undertitle I call Teamwork is Your Life. That's just something which I learned during my career. By the way, I know exactly when the first man stepped on the moon, because that was the day when I finished my foreign exchange student year in the US in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and went back to Germany. So I never forget that. That's a long time ago. So enough said of that. I will now introduce myself with the means of pictures, what I did, what my background of experience is, and I try to give some additional background as well connected to that. 93, that was my first space shuttle flight with Space Shuttle Columbia. We had a space lab, a European built lab, which flew 23 times on the shuttle, I think 23 times. And our flight was 1 digit, I don't recall exactly the number. We had 90 experiments on board, and we did them in 10 days in a shift operations. Pretty exciting flight. After 45 minutes after the launch, we are looking like that. The payload bay door is open. We see the Earth in the background. The blue-white ball, that is our globe from above. We are not that high. We are just with that mission, we were about 300 kilometer high. What is that? That's a little bit 200 miles high. And but what you see here is it's a wide angle lens, so the curvature of the Earth is more than you see with your eyes. But try to make out the thickness of the atmosphere. I think you will not be successful. It's very shallow. You always have to be aware of that. I think that's one of the main messages we take from our brain to our heart once we are in Earth orbit. What did I? Why don't I? What did I do? I tried to Here it is. That is inside in the laboratory. It's about 6 meters long, 250, 2.50 meters, so 2.7 yards in height. And so I can do an exercise like that. I just want to show you what Micro G looks like. My colleague, Dr. Bernard Harris, in the background, US astronaut, Afro-American, good colleague and friend of mine. He is choose a different orientation. That is essential. That is here very clear what weightlessness means. But we are not there to enjoy it. We are there to do experiments. You see on my forehead, I have an ultrasound sensor which measures the thickness of the skin. On the forehead, the form of the bone is easy, makes it easy with an ultrasound to measure the thickness of the skin. And the object of the research was, where does the fluid go in the body, which clearly is taking out of your extremities, legs, arms. They become very, very thin, and the bodily fluid gathers in the upper torso and in the head. And how does the body accomplish to get rid of it? That's one interesting question. Okay, next one is the crew, all 7 of us, demonstrating what weightlessness is, again, in a different way. And in the middle, we have a picture of our payload training team of the German experiments, which we did on board, roughly half of them. The other were international contributions. And just showing that we are working as a team, not only the 7 in orbit, but also the people on ground. And not only the operations team, of course. It's the people who came and had the idea, designed, manufactured, got it operationally ready, and in between tested it. And then we fly, and there are engineers, and that will be the main part of my task. There will be engineers on the ground monitoring and guiding us through the course of the mission, so everything is successful, because nothing goes as planned, as you know by now. After that is for sure. So you have to react accordingly and smartly. After that was in '94, about a year I was dealing with debriefing and doing reference experiments on board. I went to Russia for roughly 3 years in Moscow, Star City, trained for a German-Russian mission as a backup. You always are one backup crew in Russia. And here is Nikolai Budarin, myself in the middle, and Tolgat Musabayev, Kazakh, a member of the Russian astronaut team. We were just the backups. We never, what happens mostly to the people, they never fly. But it was anyway fun to train and to get to know the Russian system. This is Space Station Mir, flew 13 years in orbit, 13 years, most of the time manned. There were a couple interruptions, which is quite interesting. And it was still in orbit when we put the ISS into orbit. After coming back from Russia, Germany wanted to get rid of their astronaut team. I applied for ESA and became an ESA astronaut, and they sent me right away to the US in 1998. A year later, Jan was born. So since then, since '98, we are living here in Texas, and Jan now since almost 2.5 years in California. This is the crew which I did my second space flight with. Alan Poindexter, he is the pilot, sitting or half sitting in front of me. Also the bald guy, he's deceased by now. Everybody else is living, and we brought the most important European contribution to ISS up in orbit and integrated it to the space station. I will show pictures of that later. That is a little bit later after our mission, but it's a nice picture, so I wanted to show it. We see the 100 tons metric tons. Space Shuttle Atlantis docked to the International Space Station at that time, roughly 350 tons. And you see on the lower left, the half cut off, the Japanese module. On the right, less cut off, that is the Columbus, the European contribution, and the middle is Node 2, Italy made, but owned by the US. And this is very clear. It's an international cooperation, which we'll talk more about it. EVA, you have heard about that probably, extravehicular activity. I had the luck to do one on my mission. And it's a key thing because maybe it's the most risky part of, maybe not of a shuttle flight, that might be the launch and the landing, but in between, because you basically go into your own little spacesuit, roughly 280, 300 pounds heavy, and then you are inside. You have your own power, you have your own pressure, oxygen, you have your own tightness, air tightness, because you are working in vacuum. So that makes it specific. And here you see me, recognize me only with the German flag on my left arm, outside on Columbus, and I had the task to take insulation blankets and put them on the trunnions that is in the corner here. If you see on the upper left, that's one of the 4 trunnion which we need to insulate thermally, because they are mechanically very sturdy, connected with the structure. It's a 10-ton heavy module, and so we need to insulate it. This is now space station how we left it 12 years ago, about 3 years before its final construction. A lot more modules have been come up later, but I want to use this picture to explain the shiny module, cylindrical module, 6 meters long, or roughly 640 or so. On the upper right of the middle structure, the middle part is the pressurized modules where the astronauts can live. The big structure going from left to right, that is the truss where all the solar panels are located, the batteries, the radiators, getting rid of the heat which you generate when you operate instruments, and many other things, antennas, circuit breakers, of course, RPCM, remote controllable modules, all that is there. It's an international endeavor. Built in Russia were the lower 2 modules, very interesting. The second from below, but is paid by the US. Then comes the Node 1, then comes the US lab, then comes Node 2, then Columbus on the other side is a Japanese contribution, and there is a Node 3 right here where my cursor is now, and we have some other even commercial modules now on there. This international endeavor is only working since 20 years without interruption, always manned, and we had many occasions where it was just shown as a blessing, the cooperation between the US, excuse me, the US and Russia, because the philosophy is a little bit different. The Russians have a pretty simplistic approach, sometimes very pretty genius approach, very robust, usually easy to repair, but of course not quite as capable. The US have highly sophisticated instruments, getting, let's say, being more efficient, being more capable, but having the disadvantage that when they break, they are harder to repair. And we often had the case where one or the other broke, and the other one kept us alive up there and being manned until everything was fixed again. remember, this is the last thing which I want to say to this thing. This is like, I don't know if you ever got hiking into a national park where you cannot buy anything, you can find infrastructure, you have take everything in and take everything back. This is station as well. We need to have the spare parts which we might need during our mission. We need to have them on board. We need to have all our food on board and take, of course, the trash back. This is quite different. The space station nowadays, not this stage, but the final stage, has about the capability of 4 one-family homes, energy-wise, space-wise, but we don't have the grocery store around the corner. We have nothing. We don't have Ace Hardware, Home Depot, nothing. We all have to bring it up. I think I need to speed up a little bit. The next complicated thing I want to show you here is from the left to right, about covering 3 years, the group of astronauts working on the space station. We call that here, the upper one, the Soyuz A line. That is the line going up. Every half year they are exchanged. And then there is a B line where other astronauts come up. The A line is emphasizing on Russian cosmonauts, but always having at least one international member, usually an American as well. And the B line is usually more American, but always also a Russian, because they are operating the Soyuz vehicle. And you see in this 3 years or 2.5 years, these amount of people which are up there, all they need to be trained at least 3 years, including the rookie training. It might be altogether, a good thing is something between 3 and 5 years, where the quickest astronauts are going to fly. So you see, there is a huge pipeline of astronaut training and qualifications which you need to gather. Good enough for that big endeavor. You all have seen the space station, you can imagine, and I told you that many people are involved in creating this, getting it launch ready, launching it, and then just the operations, just organizing to work with it. The goal is to do experiments in space. We have now roughly 6 people on orbit every day with interruptions. And we have, for these people, one man year is reserved, and we are able and we are proud to have succeeded to have 1 man year divided between various people, but I mean the amount of hours to do experiments. All the others need to operate the station. You can imagine the overhead. So we have many control centers for the ISS. There's the Launch Control Center at KSC. They are getting ready the rocket. It was the space shuttle. Nowadays, they are getting ready the commercial vehicle. It's SpaceX, which already flew once commercial manned. And next year, it will be a Boeing CST-100, which will fly one time manned. And as soon as these rockets are lifting off, their job is done. They are just getting them ready, and that takes years. At the end, very intense. And then MCC Houston takes over, Mission Control Houston. And that's where I worked, also as a Capcom in the Flight Control Center before I flew. And I will introduce more of those positions at that Flight Control Center. Then we want to do experiments. The Payload Operation and Integration Center, that is in the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. This is the third one, big American control center needed for operations of ISS. Then the Japanese Control Center in Tsukuba, Japan, dealing with the Japanese part, including a transport vehicle, which comes up there at least once a year. Then COLCC, the Columbus Control Center. This is for the European contribution. It happens to be in Munich, Germany. And then Last but not least at all is the TSUP control center for the Russian orbiting segment in Korolyov near Moscow. People in the various control centers at NASA, and what kind of people are there? I mean, of course, they need cleaning ladies as well, right? But I'm talking here about the qualified jobs, not neglecting that all the other jobs needs to be done and need to be honored. And this is the big thing, why I put it in the title. We only move something nowadays when we are working in a team. And there is not an unimportant or an important role. It's always working together for the common goals and make it happen. So the qualifications of the people working in the flight control center in the front room, these are scientists, physicians, mathematicians, and engineers with degrees in aerospace, electrical, mechanical, chemical, computer science, maybe even informatics. I'm not so quite sure if that is if really meets, but I'm sure are some, and many more. And all these kind of jobs are served by civil servants. That means people who work for NASA directly, and by contractors. KRB, for instance, former Wiley, is a big company in Houston. They hire all kind of qualified people, and they all offer various opportunities for jobs, before that for internships and co-op opportunities. And there are pathway co-op opportunities where you sign up to work 3 semesters, which you cannot do in the regular study time. But after that, after these 3 semesters, when you work there, they know by then, you know you well, and if you did good, you can continue getting a civil servant job. So what are these positions which these qualified people have to do? Of course, there is, I said that before implicitly, the front room. There is now 19 disciplines, which I will mention, which are covered by one person. It means actually 3 persons in 24 hours, always shifts of 8, where they work under one flight director who is orchestrating the decisions to be made by this team and discussing the various inputs and how it will react to the whole system and makes the decision, and then is making the decision on the short-term level. That means up to 3 days. Everything which is longer is in a planning group, who is deciding what kind of experiments, what kind of maintenance has to be done. And believe me, it's not simple. You cannot choose freely because everything is interdependent. That's why 19th position work here, including the flight director. There's the ops plan. He's doing the final planning down to the minute and scheduling of all activities of the crew on board. If we have 6 people, 2 Russians, 4 US orbiting segment people, that is quite some juggling to do. There's the Capcom position I had the honor to fulfill for Shuttle and for ISS. That person communicates everything which has been decided in the MCC with the crew. There is ethos, environmental and life support. Environmental, what is that? That is the temperature of the air you are living in there, the pressure of the air, the oxygen content in there, you produce CO2. We have to remove that, because if you experience, let's say 1% CO2, you will be sick like hell. So all that needs to be controlled and kept in order. Other life support function, of course, are the food, water, and believe me, to bring a human person needs about 2.5 liters of water, right, every day. And what happens with the water after it's used, it's consumed? We can't afford to throw away 2.5 liters of water every day. A kilogram, which is a liter, costs about roughly $25,000 or nowadays more dollar to bring into orbit. So we recycle that. Yes, also urine. And it's okay. It's of course very much controlled, and Ethos is doing that and observing that, monitoring, keeping the instruments working. Spartan is working the solar arrays, power in general, and the thermal analysis, and makes very sure that the cooling and the power generation is working optimally. By the way, now after 20 years, we have just exchanged the buffer batteries for solars, all of them. Pretty big undertaking. ATCO, attitude, determination, and control. We want to fly. We don't want to tumble through space. We want to stay in one orientation. We want to be able to control, change that situation. We do that with gyros. One of these gyros, my mission exchanged because it had been breaking prematurely. It's weighing about a metric ton. And we move that by hand in weightlessness. Kronos is communication and data network on board. Very important. We want to talk to each other. We want to talk to various flight control centers. We want to talk anytime when we need it. So we cannot wait for a ground station. The Russians operate usually via ground station. We, the USOS, works via TDRS, data relay satellite in 39,000 kilometers altitude. That means it goes as fast around the Earth as the Earth is turning. So it stays over the same point, just going back and forth thousands of the equator. And we use that as a relay. Then also operational support. Basically, it's the mechanics on board. Anything which needs to maintained has to go via OSO and to be repaired. I have to speed up, so excuse me. The ISO, inventory and stowage, you think that is minor? You think of your closet. You need to think also of your garage. You need to think also of the car shop where your car is maintained. All this kind of function needs to be covered all by ISO. We need to have all the things which we ever might need up there, because when something breaks, it could be days only. It could be up to 2 months until the next vehicle comes up. And by the way, this is, of course, a challenge for any mission which goes further than low Earth orbit, to the moon, or maybe even to Mars. Then Pluto is responsible for the personal computers, Ethernet, and the power outlets which supply power to the computers. I'm having trouble here with my forward button. Okay. The second slide is about Topo, trajectory analysis. Maybe you have heard that there are, just a couple days ago, we had 2 huge satellites, or one old died satellite and one leftover of a second stage of a rocket. They were coming close in a relative velocity for several 10,000 kilometers per second. If they would have hit, we would have spoiled the whole orbit of these guys with a lot of trash. So Topo is analyzing that, is predicting that down to little trash, down to about 1/2 inch, 1.5 inch, I think is better. That's already the borderline. And it's about once a month that the station needs to fly a debris avoidance maneuver. We know in 2 days there is a close pass by, and this exactly defined. And we just do a little boost 24 hours before. It has to be just a little, because over 24 hours, that takes the meeting point so much apart, it's not a problem anymore. Sometimes it happens faster, and then you need to reboost or deboost a little bit more. Next is BME, biomedical engineer, is exercise and monitoring the health of the astronauts. Anything which has to do with the well-being of the astronauts, yes, also psychological. We have also shrinks on ground, and I say that just a little bit funny. There are psychologists, there are depending, maybe also psychiatrists, and they talk regularly once a month with the crew, with each crew member personally. It's just to reflect about the situation and finding out, is everything okay, or do we run into problems? There is, remember, they stay half a year up in orbit. We have a surgeon, that means it's a doctor, maintaining the crew health and initiating and being responsible for potential treatments, and they work together close with the BME. We have the Robo SSRMS, Space Station Remote Manipulating System. We have a robot arm 70 meters long, being on a cart, driving along the truss, so the robot arm can work everywhere on the US side of the station. The robot arm has the feet and a hand, and they are built equally, so it can walk hand over feet over the US part to come to this place where they need to work. We have EVA, extravehicular activity, spacewalk. I just told that, specified that before. But of course, that happens only once in a while. So they are, when they don't do an EVA, they are not in the control room. They are working in their offices. And we have VVO, visiting vehicle officers. We have the Japanese vehicle coming up. We have Boeing vehicle coming up. We have SpaceX vehicle coming up. We have HTV, the Japanese vehicle coming up. They all require different settings, different interfaces with station. That person is managing the dynamic phases when they come close. We have ISE, visiting vehicle system integration. Once the visiting vehicle is docked, where does it get the energy from? How is the air exchange so the humans can go without any dangers into it? In weightlessness, you can create very easily pockets of CO2 or any other micro premises. You need to have the right ventilation. Then we need a PAO, public appearance officer, which coordinates all the PAO work the astronauts do, and sometimes, of course, also the mission director or any position of the flight control team. And maybe last, again, not least, is the GC, ground control. There is a ground network for data, for voice, for pictures. That's data as well, of course, and that is worldwide. From the US, in the US, from coast, from JPL to Goddard, to Munich, to Japan, and over to Moscow. I think that is enough of that. Gosh, maybe I should put the cursor away. Yeah, here. And now I want to speed up and show you just some realizations of it. This is a Soyuz launch, that's a manned Russian rocket in Kazakhstan, in Baikonur. It's pretty powerful, but it's of course not comparable to the shuttle, which is okay. It's more robust, it's more safe, and it's easier to launch, less resources, and it's very reliable. So great that we have that. This is the capsule. After nowadays they can even do after 2 orbits, so after 3 hours, when they launch exactly on time, they can dock within 3 hours. And we see here in front the connector, the drogue, which is getting into a cone at the ISS, is fixing itself and then pulling pulling the Soyuz into the station, so then the hooks, which carry a lot of load, can close. Here, an astronaut at work. I want to mention very shortly what's important. Her feet are fixed to the foot loops, so she is in a fixed body position. She can reach with bending her hips and her knees. She can work between the biological centrifuge in front of her, the camera for photo documentation of the samples. She has a procedure in the hand, which she puts on a either in her pocket or under a Velcro. Remember, when you are working in your shop and you drop you need to get rid of a tool, you just drop it. You put it on a table, and if you don't find it on the table, then it probably fell down to the floor. Easy to find. In weightlessness, you let go of anything. Where did it go? It can be above you, under you, behind you, in front. It's everywhere possible. It's a huge overhead, so that makes working a little bit harder. What you also see is the amount of bags here, stowage. Sorry, going back, we have also experiments where the astronaut is not only the operator, but it's also the test subject. And we have here a picture of the shuttle payload bay. Within front is the docking mechanism to the International Space Station and the Earth above us. But remember, that is only because that picture was taken that way. If you would have turned the camera around by 180 degrees, the Earth would be below you. And both is right. It's all a question of perspective. A little bit more elegant description of this situation, which you have to think through what it really means for you to live there and to deal with. You cannot rely that you let go and you fall to the floor and everything is again in order. When you float around, you don't recognize where you are because everything looks different when you are turned by 180 degrees. You wouldn't recognize your living room at home when you enter it through the wall, walking on the wall instead of the ground. Believe me, I have been in that situation, and it's quite challenging. I tend to talk too much, too long. Another example here of living in space and what we need to control, and this is only the body product of grown hair. Imagine there are other body products you have to get rid of more frequently, and you have to deal with them cleanly. You can't afford cutting your hair and letting the hair float in the air. Everybody would be coughing, and I think would be having serious results. So connected to that clipper is a vacuum cleaner. And the same works for number 1 and number 2. Just very skillful, and it's a joke that we sometime in where I came from said, well, when we are lucky, we may build the toilet for the Americans. And when we said that, we should have taken that seriously, because a good functioning toilet is really valuable in space. And believe me, we have at least 2 more systems as a backup. This is the living room with windows around and down to Earth. It's basically half of space. You can look through these windows. And we see pictures like that. 1 of 16 sunsets and 16 sunrises per 24 hours. And when somebody says it's 15, then there was at least, when somebody says there was 15 sunsets, then there have been 16 sunrises. But there have been 15 sunrises, there have been 16 sunsets. It's just a little bit more than 1.5 hours for one rotation, and you see sunset and sunrise, and then 16 times 1.5 is 24. So since it's a little bit more than 90 minutes, you miss one, either a sunset or a sunrise. So actually we talk 16, but 15 is the precise answer. What else? pictures like that, wonderful. You have very few clouds. You're about 200 miles above Earth. You have a wonderful overview. The contrast between dry coastlines like California, not so much the East Coast, California, or the East Coast of Africa. Here it's like here, it's dry. You see the contrast between sea and land. It's the Horn of Africa. It's in east of Africa. Somalia is the country. Yemen is on that. Excuse me, I should use the cursor. Yemen is on the upper part, and the desert there, that is Saudi Arabia. And the Red Sea, a little bit, Gulf of Aden is that arm, and on the left there you see a little bit of the Red Sea. What is that? Any idea, you guys?
Oh, would that be Everest?
That's the Mount Everest, and that's with a tele lens. And you see here in this glacier, that's where the people, I go with the cursor, where people go. Base camp is roughly here, and then they walk through these ice falls up here and go. That's the standard road. You can come from the Chinese side as well. People try to go the direct line here. They never succeeded, as far as I know. Landing. Nowadays, the shuttle landed like an airplane, like a sailor, like a glider. We couldn't go around. We had to hit that landing strip. Now they go on a parachute, the capsule, and the next picture shows, if I get it right again here. On the left, you see the shortly above ground, the middle part where the retro rockets are fired, and then on the right-hand side when the capsule hits, and you see the huge dust cloud. People say it's like a city accident, so with 20 miles or 25 miles an hour. But the dust is not only by the hit on the ground. It's not that hard. That is more by the retro firing of the rockets. I want to introduce you to a short concept here, and then we see a film clip, and then we are done. If you still have the time, Jan or Scotty. Okay, so what I want to show you here is the boot of Italy to the right. I don't know if you know that, if you recognize that. This is the island on the left, is the island of Sicily. You see the Etna. I don't know if that's the right American US pronunciation, but you see it's active. And in the next picture, we see this picture at night. And the film clip I want to show you now is a so-called time slice. Every 2 seconds, we take a picture and we put it together frame by frame, picture by picture, 50 frames a second. So that accelerates it roughly by a factor of 100. So we see in 25 seconds, we see a night pass over Earth. And I show you basically night passes because these camera pictures, these cameras are so sensitive that we see more than a human eye can see without adapting. And if you use the time for 20 minutes to adapt your eyes to come close to that sensitivity, then this next sunset comes up and all is spoiled. So what you see now is going to be a really unique thing to see. And Jan, you yell please if it's too loud.
Yeah, I think you have to reshare your screen, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Where did I do that? You don't see it?
No, you have to go back onto Zoom and share your screen.
Yeah, well, the Zoom window with sharing is gone. How did I get rid of that? God. Where
Probably,
wait, yeah, say again.
it's probably so like if you're on a Mac, it's if you put your cursor toward the bottom, you can see the little zoom icon normally. You can click on it, take you
Yes,
back.
and I just did. Connect with us. Yeah.
You can send me the link for the video and I can play the video. If you can send me the link via email real quick.
I don't have a link for that, Jan.
Okay.
Then it's the green share screen button at the bottom of Zoom.
Yeah, which I don't have. I think I have to open Zoom up again.
Oh yeah.
Wait, I will do that. Sorry, guys. What am I doing wrong? No, I can't join from my browser. Why don't I get that?
You can't get the app up?
I think I have the app up, Jan.
Huh. That's weird.
And if it's not, the icon's not at the bottom of the screen that you click on.
Yes, it's there. And when I click that, that's what's coming up. I think that is not what is helping me. Launch meeting. Give it time. No, it's not happening.
Okay, then I guess we'll have to skip the video then.
Wait a second. You don't see that, Jan, right?
Nope.
It's worth waiting for.
Doesn't
If
Zoom
anything, I
usually
think
force
he
you to
can.
click on it? Go ahead.
If anything, if he's on Zoom, he could just press Shift Command S, and that should share his screen.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But he's on a Mac.
Command S.
Yeah,
That's it.
on Mac.
That's it on that.
It still works on the Mac, yeah.
Okay.
So I get launch meeting Zoom. Save. No, enter the waiting room. View. Admit. Should we launch again? Should I launch this?
Yeah, you can join back. We can try that.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay.
Just give me a sec here.
See you in a second.
Oh, can you still see us in the grid of faces?
Yes.
Yeah, I can go ahead and just. Actually, no, I can't.
So Jan, I'm back on your email and I hit the Zoom link. So
I think you have to leave this meeting first, probably.
yeah, but I don't have an.
You don't have the window open.
I closed everything.
Huh.
I think I left.
You're still here.
Okay, then let me see how can I do that. Just give me one more second.
It might be the picture-in-picture mode that's hiding it.
Meeting here.
There we go.
You got it.
Sorry, they just gave him a Mac recently and he's been using Windows for the past 30 plus years. So
Yeah. Oh yep.
there we
No,
go.
I just find it awesome because he's human too, even though he's like one of the smartest guys in the world. It's awesome to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There goes Windows.
Okay. He's
Did
back.
somebody Okay.
And I make the co-host. There we go. And then there we go. But yeah, the video is pretty cool. I must say. I've seen it a few times
So
already.
I hit screen share, share screen.
Mm-hmm.
Then I hit the desktop. Then I hit share, and then I try the.
The one.
I try the movie.
There you go.
Oh, we can't see.
Does anyone see it?
It's
No.
white right now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the error warnings.
There we go.
You could
Freaking Mac.
exit out. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, good.
So can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is what I promised. You see the aurora, the northern lights flying over Canada. And this is really impressing. These kind of, they'll be higher than the atmosphere. And you see the lights of the artificial lights of human trace on Earth. You see there is so many lights, so many people. You realize what 7 billion of people really mean. On top, you see the structure of the ISS. You see the turning solar arrays, which get ready for the next light pass, day pass again, to be in the right position when light comes up. You see lightning everywhere. The atmosphere is twice as thick in what you see in at night. You see here different northern lights. We are going east in the United States. We have the Great Lakes, Chicago, Detroit. We go over the southern part of the US. You see the sun glint where it hits moist bodies or water bodies. We go to Europe. This is Britain with London. We have here Belgium with the yellow lights. That's typical for them. The Baltic Sea. And we have a moonset, a factor 100 faster than in reality. We are going here over Canada. It's snow and clouds. You see here the rim of a crater being marked by snow on the top of the crater. And we see here the northern lights on the southern part of the Earth, so the Aurora Australis. And there comes daylight. You see how it will take over quickly. And we see here the sky again, lightning. We see a satellite going by. And we see a comet now in a clarity I have not seen from Earth. And again, the day comes up. That's again over Canada, Hudson Bay. And you think this is cool when you're at the window and see that for minutes and 20 minutes, it's even cooler. That is Paris, London again, and then on the right upper corner, it's Italy. They light their country very, very bright as well. And sorry for the long wait for that part. That's all I have to show you, unless, of course, I'm ready for questions when you still have time.